Welcome to the Plant Trainers Podcast, where we're helping people improve their quality of life through nutrition and fitness. And now, your hosts, nutrition and wellness coaches, international speakers, Adam and Shoshana Chame.
Hey, I'm Adam Chame.
And I'm Shoshana Chame, and we are
Propelled by Plants. Today we bring to you episode 367, A Personal Journey with Mental Illness.
In this episode of the Plant Trainers Podcast, we revisit one of our first podcasts that we recorded way back when, and that is my mental health journey. We hope that you do oversee the quality because it was the sixth one that we recorded, but I'm pretty sure it's not too bad. But I do add a lot of information, emotion, and experience, and I hope that it's comforting for you or somebody you know who is going through any kind of mental health issues themselves.
Putting this episode out the first time was really hard for Shush, but we've gotten so many letters, emails, DMs, messages telling us how it's helped others in their lives. We do hope you share it with anyone who needs to know they're not alone or needs to break their own preconceived ideas about mental health and overall strength. Stay tuned until the very end because we did add some new content for you. Enjoy the show.
Okay, people, the 28 plant-based party is on its way. People are making changes, getting support. They're starting to feel great. They've cleaned out their pantries and they know what to shop for. If you feel like you've missed out or you know somebody who is missing out, we are going to open up the doors for another 48 hours. If you want to, you can start your 28 days right now. You won't miss out on anything at all. We haven't even done our first live yet, so you can join in on that. We're going to run this program again, but I promise the price will increase. So if you want to take advantage, head on over to planttrainers.com/28 now, and you have 48 hours to join.
And now for a moment of gratitude.
I'm extremely grateful that I did sum up the courage and be able to share this episode out for all of you, all of the emails, all the DMs, PMs that we've gotten, how people felt so alone and they don't necessarily feel as alone as they did, and being able to help so many people over the last couple of years because of my own journey. I'm just grateful to be that person for all of you. It's helped.
I'm grateful for you sharing that 361 episodes ago, and we've come such a long way. So I'm grateful for you putting it out there and for us getting into this podcast, because look where we are now.
So today we're talking about mental health. Mental health, if you look it up on the internet and you look for some explanations, it talks about physical health, emotional health, mental health, and spiritual health coming together and creating a balance in the person. I would also add nutritional health. Do you feel that nutrition has
it has a huge impact on everything we do, and of course physically and emotionally, mentally, nutrition is the foundation to everything, like we talked about in our Keys to Performance podcast. And if you haven't listened to that, you should go back and listen to episode 5 because that was a really great session. But of course, it has everything to do with your mental capacity and your mental health. So being able to eat well is the foundation.
Right. I think part of the reason why I came off gluten was because there's a lot of research done and links between gluten and a foggy mind. And sometimes if your mind's not so clear and your mind's not so sharp, you might want to try to take out gluten and see if that kind of allows you to focus more and think on a higher level too.
And we're going to talk about mental health today. We're going to talk about mental illness. And this is going to be basically our experience that we're talking about. And we're going to talk about things like depression and anxiety and addiction, OCD, bipolar disorder. There are many other forms that mental health and mental illness come in, and many people experience sadness, anxiety. It becomes a problem, interferes basically with their daily life, and that's the major problem is when it becomes chronic.
Right, because everybody feels sad. Usually it's around an event that's happened, but sometimes people just feel sad or have a bad day or a cranky day, or they're anxious because they don't like to fly and they're getting on an airplane, or they're anxious about their kids at school that day, or what have you. But when it interferes, like you just said, when it interferes with your daily life and it goes on and it doesn't seem to go away, that's a red flag for I need to get some help. I need to speak to someone. And usually the best place to start is with your doctor, right? Your regular doctor, whether it's a naturopath doctor or a medical doctor, what have you. It's important to make sure that you're well taken care of so that it doesn't spiral and become a bigger issue. And it is a big issue. 1 in 10 Americans are diagnosed with depression at one time or another in their life. And that's a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think that rate's increasing, isn't it?
It is. It's going up by 20% yearly. So each year, 20% more people are being diagnosed with just depression. And that's just one little section of mental illness. Like Adam mentioned before, there's anxiety, addiction, OCD, bipolar, all these other illnesses that fall into mental health or mental illness. So just depression is going up by 20% a year.
But those are also just the people that are being diagnosed, right? Like there's probably tons of people that aren't even being diagnosed that are going through depression.
Right. So research shows that there's only 80% of people diagnosed with clinical depression are actually not being treated. So you have people who probably are depressed and haven't been diagnosed, and then you have a huge percent of people who are diagnosed but aren't doing anything about it and are living in their own worlds. And I don't really know how they're functioning without any kind of help. 1 in 5 people in Canada have some sort of mental illness. So if you're out with 4 of your friends, chances are one of you have some sort of mental illness. And 2/3 of people experiencing mental health issues will not seek help in Canada. And I don't know how they do that.
It's crazy.
I mean, you've dealt with it from the outside. You've been someone who supported me, and I don't know how you would have done that had I not been able to get help.
Well, I'm very lucky that I was able to be here and support you, and I hope that I do the best that I can always in supporting you. But it's part of the commitment that I made to you, and whatever relationship we have is what I'm going to deal with.
Right. So maybe I should start to tell people what it is that we've gone through. I mean, from my insides, but it's affected us all in the house. So our son was born in 2008, and about 6 months after he was born, I basically was on the kitchen floor, soaking wet from puddles of tears. He was upstairs crying. I was in the kitchen crying. That's when I realized that I was going through postpartum depression. I actually didn't really realize until I went to the doctor and we figured out what was going on. But in the 6 months since he was born to when I actually really broke down and couldn't function anymore, I was sad. I would cry a lot. I would lock myself in the bathroom and cry. Adam would come home from work and I would pick fights with him. And we don't fight very often, probably a handful of times, and we've been married almost 13 years. But in that time, anything was a fight. If he took 3 steps instead of 2, that was an issue that I brought up. I wasn't rational.
There was a point where whatever I did, it was not right. Yeah. I was always doing something wrong, and I kind of thought that it was me. I was doing something wrong until things developed further, and I realized that there's something going on inside your head.
There was definitely something going on inside my head. I felt like I was bad. I wasn't a good mother. I wasn't a good person. I couldn't function, and that Adam and Russell would be better off without me. I really saw myself out of the picture, and I saw that would be a better situation for them. And I mean, that's not true. They need a healthy me in the picture, but the way that I thought just wasn't rational. So I saw my doctor. I saw my son's pediatrician to make sure that everything was okay with my son. I saw my own GP. Medication was prescribed to me. So I went on Cipralex, and I had felt better after a while, after we found the right dosage. And I kind of went back to being
a regular person. I didn't cry. I didn't cry at weddings. I didn't cry at movies. It kind of, the medication kind of took over me and wiped a lot of the emotions away, but I was still able to show love and support towards my child and my husband and people around me. Just I probably did it with a stone face instead of that really loving eyes. I don't know. Did you notice
the way you're saying this, it makes it seem like you weren't doing everything you were supposed to be doing, or things weren't getting done around the house, or you weren't loving everybody. But that was all in your head. Like, you were actually an awesome wife, an awesome mother. Like, everything was getting done to the max. So everything you were feeling or thinking, it was all in your head. Like, sometimes I just wonder where it was even coming from.
See, that's really interesting, because even today, 6 years later, I don't see that. That's not my perspective. That I just thought that I didn't do anything well enough, and I didn't take care of you and Russell well enough, and I didn't cook enough, and I didn't fold the laundry enough, and I didn't love enough. And that's still the way I kind of see it.
But you do, and you did.
Yeah.
So there's something in your head that has to understand.
Right.
And you got to move on. And that's why you went to the doctors, and that's why you had medication to help you kind of get through this.
Right. So when I went on the medication, I wanted to come off, but I wanted to come off a whole person again. And I set a goal for myself to come off by Russell's first birthday, which was really only 6 months on the medication. And my doctor advised against it, but it's something that I really wanted to do. So we slowly took away the dosage. I wasn't on that much. We slowly took away the dosage, and then I felt okay. I think I felt okay. And then I went back to work, and that was June, and I went back to work in September, and I said, this is when I need to come off my medication. Now I feel good. I think I went back to work. I felt like a woman again, not just a mom, and I felt really great. And almost right away at that point, we got pregnant with our daughter, Jordan. And then Jordan was born, happy and healthy. And about 3 months, when she was about 3 months old, we started to see the signs again. This time we saw the signs. We knew what to look for. And I started to become moodier. I started crying for no reason. You were being irrational a lot of the time, and it didn't make sense to me why it was happening. I was really hard on myself. I was really anxious about what I was doing, what I wasn't doing, and I was hard on myself. And at that point, I went back to the doctor, and I got medicated again. And again, when she became a year, and it wasn't that bad that time. I wasn't on the floor crying, soaking in my tears. And then I went on the medication again. I came off the Cipralex when she was about 12 or 14 months, and things were okay. I mean, I liked not being on the medication because I liked, getting teary-eyed during movies or, at a wedding or what have you. I wanted to feel my real emotion again. I had unconditional love for my whole family, but I really wanted to feel it properly. And I think that when I came off, I was in a pretty good place, but slowly the anxiety began to take over more than the depression. And we didn't really see it at first. I went back to work full-time. We had 2 kids. Adam was working full-time. I was working full-time teaching. I was always nervous. Was I doing a good enough job? How come I didn't do this better? I really wanted to impress my principals and make sure that I was getting positive reinforcement all the time. I was like one of those goody kids that sit at the front of the class who needs to feel that, I don't know, acceptance all the time from my peers and my... You were really hard on yourself, and your level of anxiety was really high. A lot of it was unjust. Like, there was really no reason for it other than what was happening inside your head. You dealt with it pretty well. For about a year, I did deal with it pretty well. And then I switched locations at my at my job, and I was commuting about 40 minutes a day. I didn't know what my kids were wearing in the morning.
It wasn't 40 minutes a day.
Oh, sorry, 40 minutes
twice
each way.
a day.
Right. And I didn't know what my kids were wearing to school. I wasn't the one preparing any of the meals. And it just, all of a sudden, I went into this huge downward spiral. I would come home from work. I would say hello to everybody, and I would go upstairs, close the bedroom door, and I would get into bed. And Adam would either wake me up or try to ask me to come down for dinner. And sometimes I would go, sometimes I wouldn't. Sometimes I'd come down late.
Yeah, you were sleeping a lot. You went through a phase where you didn't want to do anything. You didn't want to get out of bed.
I would just like go under the blankets and cry, and I was anxious, and I couldn't eat. And I lost a lot of weight. You were able to see all the bones in my collarbone.
It was just an added stress, that job. So we had to change that.
Added stress, but I wasn't mentally healthy at that point either. And it was really scary for me. I felt like I wasn't being a mom. I wasn't being a mom. I was a basket case. I was a basket case. At that point,
no matter what I said, no matter what I did, it didn't really make much of a difference. So I had to go on with taking care of the kids and taking care of the house and taking care of everything while I was trying to help you get through this phase. Because to me, this seemed like it was just a phase and we just had to get through it and then it's going to be okay.
And I knew that it was more than a phase. I knew that it was something that was deep inside of me that I needed to deal with and I needed to change. And a good friend of mine got me on the phone with a psychiatrist. And I spoke to her on the phone. She wasn't taking new patients. By the time we ended our conversation, she was taking me as a patient, and I said, okay, I could come in next week on this day or this day, and she said, no, you're coming to me tomorrow. That's how bad I was. I was somehow able to get myself to work and get myself home, and that was all. I was losing everything else. Nothing else was a priority to me for some reason, and I went on leave from work for about a week or a week and a half because I could not function properly, and I just needed to nurse myself back. And at that point, I went back onto medication, not really thinking that this could be a continuation of the postpartum depression, still not really knowing if it was just I hadn't recuperated or recovered from my postpartum depression, or if this was some kind of full-on depression and anxiety disorder.
Can we step back a second? So
Sure.
Where did all this come from? What triggered all of this? Was it just having the babies and feeling that you're not good enough to be a mother to them? Or how did this happen? Is there some kind of chemical imbalance that happened from the pregnancy?
Right. So we don't really know. I mean, it could be a chemical imbalance. It could be more on a psychological level. I know that right before Russell was born, I had my whole school of 350 students dancing together, and I ran an assembly with 350 students where they all from SK all the way to grade 8, where they all had to be moving around and dancing and listening, and they listened and they did, and I was respected, and I was able to do whatever I wanted to do to make education fun for these students. I was able to do. And then all of a sudden, I had this little baby who was born 5 weeks early, who cried a lot, who had trouble nursing, and I couldn't make things work for this one little child, but I can do it for a group of 350 children. I think that psychologically, that played a big part on me, and probably chemically, I had some issues going on. Plus, Russell was 5 weeks early, and that puts you at a greater risk for postpartum depression as well. So I kind of understood why this was happening to me when I had Russell. Then when I was pregnant with Jordan, as we mentioned in our second podcast, Adam had some health issues himself. So, being told that Adam had a tumor and not knowing for 9 months if he was going to survive a possible cancer or possible other illness, I think was really a big trigger for me. And while I was pregnant with Jordan, I had crazy episodes of crying and anxiety, but it didn't seem like mental illness. It just seemed like a normal reaction to the circumstances that were put before us.
And did other people notice your behavior change, or was it just happening inside the house with the family, with me and the kids?
Which time?
At any point. Like, did anybody at work notice that you were depressed, or any other family members notice it? Friends?
Well, my friend Erin, I spoke to her a lot about things. So when I was feeling depressed or I needed to talk, I would try to talk to her. I didn't want to bring everything to you all the time. I was scared that if I wasn't perfect enough and good enough, that was going to affect the way you thought of me and the way you loved me. And I didn't want to, I didn't want to bring everything home to you. I didn't want to lose you, which again is irrational because, I mean, we have vows that go beyond words. Like, we support each other through whatever happens, and we've had some stuff happen, and we've always been there for each other. At work, I kept changing locations of my work. Not all my peers knew me from before. That was hard. When I went through that really big, bad depression after both kids were born, I had a friend at work who I spoke to a lot, and we shared an office together. So she knew that things were going on, but again, she didn't know me from before. But I think that trigger of thinking I was going to lose you was a big trigger for me. And instead of once I knew I get to keep you, for some reason I turned into this monster that I felt like I was pushing you away. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Does any of this make sense?
If it's how you felt, then it makes sense. It doesn't matter if it makes sense to other people, if it makes sense to you.
Right.
But how other people behaved, reacted, their attitudes towards you, that's this stigma that we talk about, right?
Right. So
I don't think a lot of people really know what stigma is all about. So can you just clarify that a little?
Right. So stigma is other people's negative reactions or attitudes to whatever is going on. So the stigma around mental illness is that people are going to look at you funny if you say, oh, I'm seeing a shrink, or I'm on medication. It's not something that we talk about. People talk about their heart medication, they talk about their insulin, but nobody says, nobody offers, oh yeah, I'm on antidepressants. It's not something that you hear often because I feel like other people think it's a sign of weakness. So I was very secretive about, I try not to be too secretive about the postpartum depression because I really wanted to encourage and help other moms out there and help them not go through it. But when it came back that third time, and I don't know if it's part of the postpartum depression or not, I really wanted to keep it a secret. I didn't want my peers and my bosses to know about it. I wondered if that was going to be, oh, her head's not on properly. She can't do a good enough job teaching, let's find somebody else who's not mentally ill. Or I didn't want to be looked at funny or thought of as weak. I never wanted to be weak. I always want to be strong. It's just something, I grew up playing sports. I grew up, went to university extremely confident, did very well. And I never wanted to be seen as weak or something less than I am. So the stigma around mental illness is that a lot of people think that you can control it and that you could just make it stop and you could just, put on a smile and fake it till you make it. And that's not always the case. A lot of times when I'm feeling really sad or I have anxiety about something that's going to happen, but I have no proof that that's going to happen, or thinking that my family's better off without me, I know in my head, I could say rationally, that's ridiculous, Shoshana. They need you. They need you to be who you are. They need you to be strong, and your kids will end up more screwed up without you than they will with you. But my feeling inside when I'm going through that doesn't match my thoughts.
Right.
Doesn't match my thoughts.
I think we're trying to make people more aware about mental illness and change these stigmas to try to have people talk about their issues more. And I know there are a bunch of initiatives that have been going on. And one of them was Bell Let's Talk.
Right.
And they did a lot of great commercials and advertisements, and they had a day in January where they raised a lot of money and tried to promote mental awareness. And they did a really great job of raising over $6.1 million on that day.
And they've been doing this for the last 5 years. So for the last 5 years, they've really been trying hard to erase that stigma and get people help, get people to get help who aren't getting help with mental illness. And we just want to play for you right now.
Right, and it's all about changing the way we talk to people or treat people. So yeah, go ahead and play this. This is a commercial from Bell Let's Talk
that you've seen on TV. They did a really great job at promoting the day. I think it was January 28th this year, and they have Bell Let's Talk Day, where if you hashtag Bell Let's Talk on that particular day, then money gets sent to the community where you're hashtagging from for mental illness. So they're really doing a great job at getting people to talk about it, and I can tell you some other things that they're doing after. But let me play this commercial for you. And you'll get an idea of what it's about. It's basically two people standing in the office, and here we go.
I hear she's so depressed and on sick leave.
Well, we could both use a vacation, too.
I hear she's so depressed and on sick leave.
Well, we could both use a vacation, too.
I hear she's so depressed and on sick leave.
Well, we could both use a vacation, too.
I hear she's so depressed and on sick leave.
I'm going to swing by with Mary and see how she's doing.
And it just stops. So again, it's all about perspective and trying to make people aware and have people talk about it. And so Bell Let's Talk Day, I think, was a very successful time where everybody raises the awareness of mental illness, and they did raise a lot of money for it.
They did, and they have a whole, I'll put a link to it in the show notes. They have a whole guide for people who want to start creating groups and talking about mental illness and helping people deal with their issues. So if you're interested in starting something like that, I can put a link to that in the show notes so that you could take a look at that. They also have two great spokespeople with them. They've had Clara Hughes for the last few years. She's an Olympic athlete. And she's done a lot and really put herself out there to help others. And I kind of know how she feels a little bit today. You know, at the beginning, you're nervous talking about your stuff, right?
Your
Just
personal,
your personal
emotion.
stuff. But also Howie Mendel took the stage this year with the Bell Let's Talk Day. And I want to put that video, I want to play that video for you as well, because in his own Howie Mendel funny way, he really gets an important point across. So this is Bell Let's Talk 2015, the Howie Mendel Testimonial. Here we go.
Just wanted to pop in here to let you know that we're going to keep the doors open for another 48 hours for our 28-day plant-based party. And if you want in, don't miss out. Now's the time to get in. We have Claire from Toronto who did the program last time around, and what she said was, it was just what I needed to get me started on the right path to healthy nutrition. The support was amazing, no judgment, even when I was judging myself. Always a very gentle approach, always very good suggestions. The commitment from Shoshana and Adam was outstanding. If you want to get in these last 48 hours, go to planttrainers.com/28. That's planttrainers.com/28 and join the 28-day plant-based party. And now back to the show.
In the United States, I was on the Howard Stern show, and I have OCD, and part of it is I have these rituals and I can't touch things. And he thought it was funny to, the door was kind of dirty and nobody would open it for me, and I started to panic and go through anxiety. And I didn't know we were still broadcasting. I said, no, I see a psychiatrist. I have OCD. I'm medicated. I can't, this is not funny. This is not a joke. And they ended up opening the door for me, and then I realized that this got broadcast. And I went down onto the street. This is in Manhattan in New York, and I walked out into the street. And I thought, how can I deal with this, and how can I even look at anybody? And right when I walked into, I was facing the traffic, somebody came up to me and said, "Are you Howie Mendel?" And I wouldn't even make eye contact. I was so embarrassed. And I went, "Yeah." And they said, "I just heard you on Howard Stern. And I went, oh my God, like, what do I do now? Do I just run into traffic and just end it here? And the next 2 words were the words that made my life different. And the guy just said into my ear, me too. If we take care of our mental health like our dental health, we'll be okay. We all talk about our dental health. Talk about my mental health? No. In corporate North America and Canada, you can say in the middle of the day, I got to leave at 3, I got to go see my dentist. But you look at the looks in the office when you say, you know what, I got to go to a psychiatrist. You'll get looks. And that's what's wrong. And that's why we got to talk about it. There's no stigma. I'm crazy. I'm mental. I'm talking about it.
And that's what they want people to do. They want more people to talk about mental illness. They want to make it more mainstream. They want people to feel less alone and that they have support. So, Shush, why don't you tell us a little bit about the support system that you created for yourself and how that worked for you?
Right. So the support system that I had my third time around, my third time experiencing these issues, was really much stronger at the beginning, because at the beginning you don't know what's happening to you, you don't know what to do, you don't know where to turn. But my major support system is Adam, being open and being honest and making sure that the pieces that I can't be picking up at the time, that he's there to pick up, because then I feel better that everything's getting done and getting taken care of, and that I have time to take care of myself, because that's really what I needed to do the most. I needed to take care of myself, to be the wife and best friend that I needed to be the mother that I needed to be. So Adam was my number one. I had 2 friends that I spoke to about how I was feeling, and that helped a lot too. I started seeing this psychiatrist, and that helped. It helped to get things out and not have to bring everything home to Adam all the time. So I would go to her once or twice a week and after work and talk and think and make plans. And that way, not everything needed to come home to Adam. We could spend time on us and on the things that need to get done day to day. I did go on medication. I was on 20 milligrams of Cipralex, and now I'm down to 10. And part of the ways that I was able to get down to 10 was after about a year and a half of being on the medications, I started seeing a Chinese medicine doctor who's been helping me with that. I've been digging a little bit deeper in terms of meditation and spiritualness, which I think is helping me as well. And our family knows. Our family knows, and I think that helps. That helps, not put certain situations. I just don't need the pressure, potluck family dinners. Like, you'd think, to make a salad and just bring it somewhere. There was a point where thinking about having to make a salad 2 days from then to bring somewhere really freaked me out.
You had extreme anxiety about the smallest things.
I did, and our aunt and uncle, who we go to their house quite often, we always share, if we're having a big Friday night dinner or a early Sunday dinner, we share the responsibilities, but they were just so understanding and helped as well. And actually, CAMH is something, my aunt works at CAMH, and so she really understands, addiction and mental illness. And CAMH is Canada's largest leading mental health and addiction center. And they're a hospital, they do programs, they give care, they do research and education, and lots of Canadians will reach out to CAMH and find help through CAMH.
And we'll link to them in our show notes so people can go check them out if they need help for themselves.
Right. And recently I found out about a company called Life with a Baby. It's a not-for-profit charitable company that offers programs to pre- and postpartum parents to help, well, I don't want to say avoid, but to help parents not have to go through postpartum depression, or if they are, it helps them get through it. And I really wish that it had either been around or that I knew about it back then. I would have loved to have taken part in their programs. But Life with a Baby is something also that we'll link to. And if you're in the Toronto area, or maybe you're not in the Toronto area, but they might have some great resources for you on their website as well.
So what other treatments or support can people look for?
Right. So you could look for support and groups in your community to talk about mental health. Kind of like I said, like with the Bell Let's Talk, they have packages out and kits out to get people to start creating programs for people in the community. You can call your synagogue, your church, your hospitals will be able to point you in the right directions. If they don't have programs for you, they could point you in the right directions for support for mental illness. In your community, your friends and family. Friends and family, I mean, we get scared that friends and family are going to look at us funny if, that stigma is there, but screw the stigma. Forget it. Be open and be honest, and you'll see how compassionate people can really be, and they might know other people in the same situation as you, and that might help you find what you need to get through your time too. Of course, speak to your GP is really the first thing that I recommend. Start working with a therapist if that's something that works for you. And hobbies. Find some, exercise. Find a hobby. Maybe it's painting. Maybe it's joining a bowling team. Something social that can maybe take your mind off of it for a while, or that you could put your heart and creativity into also is really important.
I think this is such an important podcast that we've done here. I think that it's so amazing that you're able to come out and talk about all this and get it off your chest and let other people know how you're feeling. And I think the main point out of all this is that if you, the listener, or someone who's going through any type of mental illness, you're not alone. There's many, many people that are going through similar or the same things as you. And you should not be afraid to talk to someone, to do some research, to find out how you can get some help, because the help is available and people are not looking down on you.
They're not. And if you're feeling shy about it and you're not ready to speak to others, books are a really great place to start too, because there are so many books that can help you get through it. There's also books that other people have given their personal experience in, and that way you learn that you're really not alone. We've talked about lifestyle a little bit and food. For me, going gluten-free, hoping that would clear out my mind and allow me to think more, think clearly, kind of push the depression away. Eating whole foods and getting your body in a good place so that your body and mind can work together. Eating less sugar, exercising, and then adding your head and your brain into that, either meditating or doing energy work. But all these different things that we've mentioned today, just a little disclaimer, really go to a professional. Talk to your doctor, and
sometimes medication can't be avoided.
Right.
In an ideal world, we wouldn't need to use medication, but for some of these mental illnesses, you absolutely do.
You do, and there's different kinds of medication. There's medication that you get from your pharmacist, and maybe your naturopathic doctor can help you with some things too. I felt that when I was at the point where I needed the medication, I needed it then, I needed it now. I didn't have time for a naturopath. I needed help. I knew that I needed help right there, and that was also a couple of years ago. I think I've evolved a lot in terms of nutrition and health since then, and maybe I wouldn't take the same route, but for me that was the best route. And I don't love that I'm putting the medication into my body, but I'm better. I'm better, and I'm slowly coming off, and slowly is the key. I'm slowly coming off under the guidance and watch of my doctor and Adam, and working with my Chinese medicine doctor, and that's working for me. And everybody will need something just a little bit different.
So there really have been a lot of ups and downs since that podcast recording, which was 5.5 years ago. But I can definitely say that it has mostly been up, and there's been lots of trial and error on what's going to help support my body, what's going to help support my brain, my emotional state, and us as a family since then. I wanted to share with you that I haven't used any pharmaceuticals in 4 years, but if you're in a spot where you are, that doesn't mean go off them. It just means that there is maybe more that you can do to help reduce them or come off them. Or if you do need them to stay where you are and to thrive, then that's okay too. But here are some things that I do on a daily basis so that you can think if they are helpful for you. And the first thing that I do is I meditate every single morning. Sometimes for people, meditation could be just sitting down and listening to a meditation. For some people, they can do it completely on their own. I know for Adam, your meditation, although you do a guided meditation, it's also running. That's also something that's really helpful for you. I do set an alarm to go off every single morning, afternoon, and evening just to remind me to be in the moment, to remind me to be joyful, to remind me to take some breaths. And I find that very helpful as well to kind of check in with myself. The second thing that I've done over the years is I've been extremely honest and open with Adam about my state, where I'm at, when I need help, when I think I might need more support. And he has been very receptive to that, and that's helpful as well. So definitely having your accountability partner or having somebody close to you who can keep an eye out for you or cover for you when you need some time off is really, really helpful.
And I think having that support and understanding that it's an ongoing process is an important thing to have.
Yeah, mental health issues or mental illness is not just that one individual person who's experiencing it. It's definitely more of a unit. And whether you have an immediate family who you live with or close friends or the rest of your family, all of those people are involved if you make them a part of your life. And making them a part of your life can be extremely supportive. The third thing I do is I really do eat the best I can, and I exercise for about 30 minutes, 5 to 6 times a week minimum. Sometimes it's more than 30 minutes. But when I am eating my best, when I am exercising, I feel different. I feel better. And sometimes it's hard. And sometimes I haven't exercised for a few days because I feel like I can't handle it. But then I see how things start to snowball. So it is so important to have a way to create that time for exercise and to make sure that you're planning to eat the very best that you can.
Can't say enough about the power of nutrition, power of food, and the impact that exercise has on stress, anxiety, mental health, illness, all of it.
I think, you don't struggle with mental illness or haven't struggled with mental illness or mental health the way that I have, but you still feel a difference on a daily basis when you follow these kind of guidelines as well, correct?
Of course, yeah.
And then the fourth thing is that I've really studied a lot more about the body in the last little while. And anxiety is something that I was dealing with more after this episode aired. I know at the beginning it was depression, then it was depression and anxiety and the PTSD, but anxiety is something that does come up for me. And anxiety occurs because there's an imbalance of the brain chemicals, and these neurotransmitters are not working properly, and they're keeping you from feeling calm, and they're keeping you from feeling centered. And in the last 20 years, there's been so much research that shows that oxidative stress in the brain and the neurotransmitters are not able to function properly and to send proper messages throughout the brain, and things are firing off, but the brain's getting confused, and that's really adding to what that feeling of anxiety comes to for people. And redox is created within the body, and it helps to fight against oxidative stress and create the proper amount of neurotransmitters, and this is bringing balance back into the body when everything is signaling properly. And that's why I supplement daily with a redox signaling supplement so that I can have a lot more balance in my brain, so that when everything's firing off, all those messages are being sent. And I really do find it extremely calming. A combination of drinking it, rubbing it into my ears and my neck makes a huge difference. And we did talk about that a lot more in the Plant Trainers podcast, episode 326. And if any of you want to talk a little bit more about that, as always, like we say, feel free to reach out to us. Email us at info@planttrainers.com, and we can provide you with a little bit more information.
Thanks for being here. We appreciate you. Be well, and check you next week.
Thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the Plant Trainers podcast. We want to make sure that you subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, or any other podcasting platform.
We really appreciate the feedback we receive from you. Every time we get a 5-star rating or review on iTunes from one of our fans, it really helps other people find us, just like you did.
Thanks so much to our patrons. To become a patron, visit us at Patreon.com patreon.com/planttrainers. Even supporting us with $1 really makes a difference in the quality of the show.
And don't forget to connect with us on Instagram and Twitter. Our handle is @PlantTrainers. Like Plant Trainers on Facebook, join our newsletter, and check out our website at planttrainers.com for awesome recipes, a list of our services, and of course, our latest podcast.
We encourage you to email your questions to info@planttrainers.com so that we can help you improve your quality of life through nutrition and fitness.
So we hope we've inspired you today. Join us again next time
And
have a healthy day. Or is that too corny?
It's a little cheesy.